care. I mean, $3, but it was expensive for people that live there. But because I think if I took the bus, it was 10 cents. What's the difference? $3, 10 cents. I don't give a damn. I took the. But the purpose of the story is you have massive inflation that wipes out your currency. I don't know what the forint got killed or whatever. But I think a lot of people that have houses are going to be converting them into bed and breakfasts and stuff like that. But they're not going to be building new houses because people aren't going to be able to afford the materials, right? Because inflation is going to drive up the cost. So, if you see a house that you really like, especially if you can buy it now at less than the cost of building it, think of how much more expensive it's going to cost to build in the future. Now, if you have a bunch of gold, you'll be able to pay people to build you a really, really nice house, or you'll be able to buy a really, really nice house that's already built. So from an investment perspective, I think real estate's going to go down. But I own some real estate. I own the house. I'm at my home in Puerto Rico. I own this house. I bought it, and I don't have a mortgage, right? So, but I didn't buy the house as an investment. I already have the investments that I want. I just bought the house because I liked it and I wanted to live here. And so, you have to make these decisions. A lot of it is a personal decision between you, if you're married, with your wife. But yeah, I mean, if you own a house, though, it's going to get more expensive to maintain it if you need to redo the roof. I just had to put a new roof on my Connecticut house. Cost me a lot of money. It's going to cost a lot more money the next time, but that's not for about another 20 years or so that people are going to have to put a new roof in. But you buy a house now and the dollar crashes with hyperinflation, that material is going to be very expensive. And if you can't afford a new roof, then what are you going to do? You're just going to live in a house with water leaking in? A lot of people. I mean, it's going to cost a lot more money in the future to, pay for the utilities for your house. So you got a big house. If you can't afford to heat it, can't afford to air condition it, that's going to be a problem that a lot of people are going to have. Anyway, let me go on to the next question. You mentioned keeping 5 to 10% in gold, physical. Yep. If you are using physical gold for your savings, this would be a much higher percentage. No. Would you recommend keeping physical cash? Look, yeah, everybody, have some cash at home. Have some dollars, maybe even have some other currencies that are popular. Have some Swiss francs, have some pounds. You have a little cash. You never know which cash people are going to want. Or if you're going to travel, you can have a little cash with you. But I wouldn't just go overboard on cash. If you have $1 million, I mean, you don't want to keep that in cash, but can you keep $5,000 in cash? Yeah, you could do that. Have 20s, have 5s, that you can spend, especially if you have no access to banks. You can't use the banks. Who knows what they're going to shut down. So people may be wanting cash until they eventually want gold, right? So, and I would definitely spend my cash first, right? That's Gresham's law. Hold your gold and buy whatever you can with cash until you can't buy anything with it anymore, until people won't take it. Anyway, Rish's Ramaj. I'm young and can work remotely and sitting in a pile of cash I've saved. What should I do? Yeah, I mean, if you can work remotely, you can live whatever you want. I mean, I don't know, obviously, look, tax havens are good. If you like Puerto Rico, it's a great place to work remotely if you're an American. If you're not an American, you have a lot more tax havens that you can choose from. But if you have a pile of cash, depending on how big that pile is, convert some of that pile to gold and silver. Have real money instead of a money substitute. Cash is an inferior substitute to real money. Okay. Stoger 4. I'm in a contract to buy a home with a low 2.8% financing. That must be not a 30-year fix. Maybe that's a 10 or a 15-year something. You're a software engineer. You're not worried about losing your job. Should I walk away? Look, I don't know what the cost is of walking away. I'm not actually sure where your house is, in what part of the country. You have to look at the local real estate market and look at the prices of properties. Like, I still think California is a massive bubble. I think real estate prices in California, northern and southern, are going way down. So if you're asking me, will you be able to buy the house for less money in the future? My answer is absolutely. especially if you're saving your down payment money in gold and silver. Now, will you be able to get a 2.8% mortgage? Maybe not. You may have to pay a 10% mortgage. But if you borrow a lot less money, if there's a house right now that costs $1 million and you take out a 2.8% mortgage, what if you buy that same house for $200,000 with a 10% mortgage? Your payments are a lot lower, even though your interest rate is a lot higher. And of course, if I'm right, if you buy enough gold, when the market crashes, you may not even need a mortgage. You'll be able to buy your house free and clear using that gold. But if the decision has nothing to do with finances, if you couldn't care less, if the house that you buy is worth a lot less in the future, then you can make a decision for non-economic reasons. But there were a lot of people for a while during the housing bubble that were buying houses because they thought they were going to get rich. I mean, they might have preferred to rent, but their friends were saying, you're wasting your money on rent. You're throwing away all that equity. And they probably were happy renting. It was more carefree. They had more flexibility to move around. If something went wrong, they just called up the landlord and said, fix this. They didn't have all the hassle. They just wrote a check. Easy peasy, right? But they saw people who owned condos getting rich while they were writing rent checks. And so a lot of people made a decision to buy a condo or a house, even though it made more sense to rent, because they just wanted to get rich like everybody else. And so, then the bubble popped. So, don't make the mistake of thinking that you get rich owning the house that you live in, right? A house is a money pit. Believe me, I own several houses now and they are money pits. All I do is write checks. The more house you have, the more stuff goes wrong. And you got to keep fixing stuff. I mean, they suck money, right? So you buy a house because you can afford to lose the money to maintain the house. If you don't have a lot of money, then rent and let your landlord deal with all of those problems. The way you make money in real estate is if you have rental properties and you manage them properly and you buy them at the right price and you have good tenants and you collect rent and stuff like that. Then rental property can be a good investment if you buy it at the right time and you know your market. But I think residential real estate is overpriced. Now, if you can get it really cheap, right? If you get maybe you'll do well, but most parts of the country, real estate is still very expensive as part of the bubble, right? It was all lifted up by the cheap money. It's not just that the Fed held interest rates artificially low. It's that the government guaranteed all the mortgages. So people that really shouldn't have been able to borrow money were able to borrow it because the government backed the loans. In the future, not only will interest rates be much higher, but there will be no more government guaranteed mortgages. So people will only be able to borrow money if they can actually pay it back. Oh my God, what a concept, right? Only lend money to people who can pay it back, right? Eventually that's what's coming. And when that's coming, real estate prices will be much lower, which is going to be better. You see, because the government artificially inflated the real estate market, a lot of people need to borrow a lot more money than they would have had to borrow had there had not been a real estate bubble. You see, the irony of it is by trying to help people buy homes, by guaranteeing mortgages, they made the price of buying a home go way up so that people needed much bigger mortgage as a result of the guarantees. See, the government screws up everything it gets involved in. The same thing with college loans. Why is it so expensive to go to college? Because the government guaranteed all the loans. So once kids got loans from the government, the colleges were like, oh, great, we're going to raise the tuition because whatever we charge, the government's going to give you the money, no questions asked. So the government creates every problem that they're now trying to solve. Let me see. Next up, Tyler Kemp. What's your take on long-term S&P index investing? Going to be a disaster. Mindless indexing is part of the problem. There's an old Wall Street adage, don't confuse brains with a bull market. Well, it's even more important not to confuse brains with a bubble because we haven't just been in a bull market, we've been in a bubble. But during the bubble, right, as all the overpriced stocks keep going up, and look at stocks like Amazon or Netflix, they've barely gone down. You look at a chart of Amazon and Netflix, you don't even know that anything's happened to the stock market. We've had the biggest collapse, the fastest collapse ever. And you look at an Amazon or a Netflix, and there's some few other charts out there, you wouldn't even know that anything happened. You look at a monthly chart and it's just in the same old uptrend. See, what happens is as these overpriced stocks become more and more owned in these index funds, the index funds keep outperforming the market. And so the more they outperform, the more money they suck in. And as they suck in money, They use the money to keep buying the same overpriced stocks that are responsible for the outperformance. So you have all the lemmings that have now been, that put their money in the same index funds. What's going to happen when the lemmings need their money? When they find